In this video I want to show you one of my favorite potato dishes, which is probably best described as potato bacon gratin or pomme de terre gratiné. Now, most of us think of potato gratin of gratin dauphinois, which is a regional speciality of the Le Dauphinois region, which is a former region in the southeast of France. Now, pomme dauphine is considered worldwide as the ultimate potato gratin, which you can see in some of my other videos, but if you look into history, potato gratin in traditional French cooking is in most cases potatoes with cheese. Now, large floury potatoes are baked in the oven, then halved, and the flesh is cubed from the skins. The flesh is then mashed together with butter, cream, grated cheese and seasonings. The mix is then skewed back into the skins, arranged in a baking tray, sprinkled with some grated cheese and then browned in the oven under the grill. So my version here is a real mixture of the traditional potato gratin and gratin dauphinois, and to just add a little bit more to the confusion, it's sort of somewhere in the middle, but hey, in the end of the day, all that matters is how good it tastes, and this here, my recipe, will not let you down on those levels. Now I want to tell you also a little bit about history, and it's hard to imagine French cuisine without potatoes, but they only play a part in the French diet since Louis XVI in the 17th century. And story goes that a guy called Jacques Cartier brought potatoes to France after an expedition exploring the Americans. Now in France, Count Parmentier, yes, there are several potato dishes named after that guy, was a pharmacist, a chemist and an employee of Louis XVI. And he planted them in the garden with the intention of growing and harvesting potatoes on mass scale in order to feed the French peasant population. Unfortunately, the potato was not an instant hit with the French, who at that time regarded it with great suspicion and fear and a food of the devil, because growing it under the soil and then being a nightshade, meaning it grows in the dark, plus in its green state, the potatoes of course contain a lot of solanine, which is a poison that is basically fatal, and it was as well tested and it was poisonous, and not even the dogs would eat them. So the potato were a really hard sell for Parmentier until he adopted a bit of reverse psychology. Now Parmentier planted 50 acres of potatoes on a plot of land on the outskirts of Paris. During the day, he instructed a royal guard to watch over it. Now when the locals noticed that the crop was of such value that the royal guards were protecting it, their curiosity grew and hordes of people came to see what all the fuss was about. The trick worked. The potatoes gained a heightened interesting value overnight and very quickly attracted widespread acceptance. Today, being one of the major food sources in Europe and literally the rest of the world. Now back to the dish. The potatoes are obviously baked without any cream or milk like you see in dauphinoise or any other liquids altogether, so you will end up with a very, very pure potato flavors that carries the rich flavor of the cheese and the bacon so well. Now can you add other flavors? Of course you can. Sliced truffles, different herbs like rosemary, thyme, oregano would go really nice, and even some spices like cumin or loads and loads of black pepper make them really nice. Now I also made it a few times with adding some olives or some salted capers, fried onions, sun-dried tomatoes, so you can see there is a lot for you to play around in terms of options of flavoring. And the best way to serve this dish is definitely with a green leafy salad and a sort of a good rustic red wine. So I hope you enjoy that video. So first you need some nice streaky bacon. Make sure it's quite meaty. You don't want it to be too fat, because in the end of the day, you know, you just don't want to have too much fat. You want to have a quite nice meaty flavor. So next thing, slice your potatoes with a mandolin. Now if you don't have one, then just cut it by hand and cut it sort of quite thin, like 1 to 2 millimeter thick. So it's just going to be like a gigantic potato cake. So the potatoes you use, if you watch one of my other videos, you can see of course you would need a potato that's a bit starchy, a potato that's good for mashing, like something that doesn't really stick too much. but much more about that in my potato video, so check that out please too. So the next thing is you place all the potatoes into a pot, and then you add some chopped garlic or any sort of flavors like I said before, and then some fresh herbs. In my case I use a bit of rosemary or thyme. And then you just sort of mix that together. You also need to season your potatoes with salt. Now, one thing I need to tell you, when you work with potatoes, one thing potatoes do not like, that's just a bit of a tip on the side, a little bit of pepper, is acid. So if you would cook your potatoes in white wine, or if you would put lemon juice on it or vinegar and things like that, you will find that your potatoes stay hard during cooking, which means you can cook them for an hour or two, they're still going to be staying hard. That's why often when people cook potatoes in white wine, and they wonder why they become really, really hard. So potatoes or potato starch does not like acid. So stay away from anything to like putting any lemon juice in there or balsamic vinegar or things like that. So now I marinated my potatoes with garlic, salt, chopped thyme and a bit of pepper. And now I just need to get a really nice mold. And the mold you use, just think about something. It needs to be quite thick walled. It needs to be really thick because you want to fry that bacon. So it's better to use something that's made out of metal. Just use a fry pan, and of course you can dip the whole cake out in the end if you want to. And now just line the mold with bacon. Now that can be a little bit tricky because you will have enough bacon in the center, but you might find on the rim, on the edges of the pan, you will literally run a bit out of bacon. So it's a bit of an art to do that. So just make sure that you try not to sort of cover the sides and the top of the pot as well, as you can see here, and don't get in the middle like this huge chunk of bacon. So don't go right to the center of the pan. Very important, because otherwise you might end up with the bacon being like a centimeter thick in the center and you run out of space on the edges. So just fold it all in. So the bacon I use here is just a sort of a mild smoky bacon. It's up to you. If you like it really strong, you could of course even use something like prosciutto and do it the same way. Plus, you know, it's really up to you. If you just want to have a really fatty, greasy bacon, you could also use just some ladro or some pancetta if you like it a bit more sort of Italian. So anyway, I hope you enjoy my video, and if you do, please subscribe to my channel and check out my link below for all my other online courses and things like that. And you can see I lined it really nicely. It's not too thick in the center. That's what I want, because if you go with those bacon strips right to the middle of the pot, you will find that you get a really thick layer in the center, which is a bit unusual. So now the potatoes go in, just layer them in nicely. I'm going to put layer by layer into it because I still want to sprinkle some cheese in between if I want to do that, and through that I'm going to get a really strong tasting, rich tasting potato cake. And I originally first tasted that dish in France when I was traveling around the Normandy region, and it's sort of really, it's an amazing dish. And later on I actually saw a version of that in the cookbook of Joël Robuchon. If you know that guy, is one of the best chefs that ever lived. I think he had the most Michelin stars in the world, and I think he has a version of that in one of his cookbooks too. So here we go, just layer of cheese, layer of potatoes, and you need to think is if Robuchon, a 3 Michelin star chef, puts that into one of his books, it must be tasting pretty amazing. So yes, it would be probably something a Michelin star chef eats at home for every day. And I really love that dish. And as I said, because you have the bacon, you have the potatoes, you have the cheese, this is really a main course. You do not serve that with as a side garnish. That is the dish. And through that, just a really nice salad or so. And now just close it all up. And again, here you have to make very sure that the potato strips, so that required a bit of measuring in the beginning, that the potato strips actually reach the center of the pot. And you can see now what I have here now, I have that high pile of bacon, which I just told you before, to avoid that. So if you have that on the top, it's not so much a problem. I just squeeze it down, then then turn on the oven to 180 degrees fan force or 200 degrees Celsius, traditional bake, and then put that cake into the oven for approximately an hour and a half to 2 hours. Now you can check it. You just basically take a paring knife or needle, you poke it into the center of the cake, and if you feel like it's the same resistance all the way through, then it's cooked. If you go to the center and it gets harder and harder and harder, then you obviously know it's not cooked. And you can see now, because it helps me a lot with having that copper pan there, because it really fries the bacon on the sides and it fries the bacon on the top. If you find towards the end that it's not brown enough, all you can do is basically increase the heat, and here we go. It looks absolutely amazing. So of course I'm going to taste that straight away and try it. It's really simple. And please subscribe to my channel, and I look forward seeing you at one of my other videos. And obviously this is an absolutely amazing winter dish, so enjoy it, and I look forward seeing you next time.